This is the introductory video for a challenge series that I'm going to be putting myself through called Terminal Takes on His Childhood. The challenge is to beat a series of games that I played extensively when I was a kid. I don't actually remember beating any of these games properly. Either I beat it with cheat codes, or I only beat part of the game, or I just messed around in the game and didn't really follow any of the game's goals outright. I guess the reason I never did beat them is in one part due to either their difficulty or the nature of their game. If there was a sandbox mode, I instantly stuck to that as a child for whatever reason. And another part was the fact that I was a kid. I remember playing these games from the first time I played them. I was either 8 to 12 years of age. It was a long time ago. And these games were fun enough, even if I didn't grasp the concepts of game balance and challenge at the time. Anyway, I've chosen 4 games, which you can probably guess because I threw them up on screen. And these really stick in my craw because they've just been unbeaten for this long, and I'm only just now getting to them. The first game is Hunter Hunted. The goal for this game is to just beat all of the original levels. When I first played this game, I didn't actually sit down, play through the levels one by one. I just found the game sitting around the house. I knew how to use the computer, and I just played with no regards for the goals. And I was 8 at the time, so I really can't. I think I was 8. I could have been 7 or I don't know, around that age. I couldn't really have the attention span at that time to go through and do all of these things. That being said, apparently some more levels were released since I remember playing it and now, but those are bonuses and outside the bounds of the challenge. A rule of thumb I'm using for this challenge is if it wasn't part of my childhood, then it's not a part of the challenge proper. The second game is Age of Empires 2, and the goal for this game is to beat the Conqueror's expansion campaign. And back when I first played this game and its prequel, the first Age of Empires, I just cheated. Played the game and constantly used cheat codes. Just pepperoni pizza, coinage, all the other ones that just gave me everything I could want and didn't give me any sort of challenge whatsoever. And apparently that was fun enough to keep me busy for however many hundreds of hours I put into the series, because who doesn't like committing mass genocide with the laser beam soldiers from the future? You might be asking yourself too, hey, why are you doing the Conqueror's expansion and not all of Age of Empires 2 or all of Age of Empires? And mainly it's to save on time in this challenge. And something of a funny story when it comes to Age of Empires, and that was this game taught me, in probably the worst way you can teach a 10 to 12-year-old, what an expansion pack was, because when I first caught wind of this game, I had saved up all my hard-earned allowance, and I purchased the expansion pack without buying the original game. So I remember a couple of days just being distraught that I could not play this game that I had recently bought myself. I thought, hey, I'm buying a box with a game in it. I should be able to play the game, right? Nope. Anyway, I did eventually get my hands on the collector's edition, which had all of Age of Empires 1 and 2 at the time, so that's when I first actually started playing. But that little mishap makes the Conqueror's expansion stick out in my mind more, and the fact that I haven't beaten it also sticks out in my mind a whole lot. The third game is Zeus, Master of Olympus. The challenge's goal is to beat the Trojan War. Now, back when I first played this game, I just messed around in sandbox mode, ignored most of the historical and mythological contexts, but enjoyed the city building, and yeah, didn't care for the campaigns, because in a campaign, the game stops after you reach a certain threshold or a certain goal, and who wants to stop the game? Anyway, I actually remember revisiting this game maybe 5 or so years ago, and part of the reason I'm only doing the Trojan War is because I already went through and beat all of the campaigns whenever I came back to revisit it. But for whatever reason, when I was revisiting this, I never got through the hardest campaign, which was the Trojan War. It just kind of stopped me in my tracks, and I never got back to it until now, and that's why it's a part of this challenge. The fourth and final game is Restaurant Empire, and I just want to beat the main story mode of this. Much like Zeus, when I first played this game, I just messed around in sandbox mode and just gave myself $100 million and built as many restaurants as I wanted to. Another thing, much like Zeus, is I remember revisiting this one, not 5 years ago, maybe like 7 or so years ago, and just slogging through the campaign. I think it was, actually, now that I think about it, it might have been 7 years ago because the sequel came out, and I decided to give that a try and decided, hey, I'm going to actually beat the campaign this time. And it's long and it's difficult, and I did not get through it. There's a little fear in the back of my head that this one's going to take me the most amount of time and is going to be one of the more difficult ones. And that's kind of the reason I cut off the other campaigns a little short. Not only because I had some childhood considerations, but also because this one's the long one. It's going to be the hard one. Now, some of those other parts of the game may technically fall within the challenge's scope, like I don't think I've actually beaten the Age of Empires 2, the original game's campaign mode, and there's an HD edition too with some extra stuff. But I'm gonna throw in any of those other extra things after the beast that is Restaurant Empire is slain. And with that, the challenge begins. I guess the first difficult step is to make sure that all these games work in Windows 10, and yeah, that one's gonna be fun.